The twin suns of Zerion Prime cast long shadows across the crystalline battlefield as Sergeant Marcus Chen crouched behind a fallen Zephyrian war machine. His breathing was steady despite the chaos around him. Plasma bolts screamed overhead while the ground shook from artillery strikes that made the crystal formations ring like twisted bells. Marcus had been fighting in this war for 3 years now. The Galactic Coalition had sent human forces to help defend the Outer Rim worlds from the Vorak Empire's expansion. What started as a simple peacekeeping mission had turned into a grinding conflict across dozens of worlds. The Zephyrians were strange allies. Their blue-scaled skin shimmered in the alien sunlight, and their elongated heads held 4 eyes that could see across multiple light spectrums. They were brilliant tacticians and engineers, but they had one major flaw that Marcus had noticed early on. They viewed everything through a lens of cold efficiency. An explosion nearby showered him with crystal fragments. Marcus wiped the dust from his helmet's visor and checked his rifle's charge. 80% power remaining, enough for the mission ahead. His orders were simple: reach the Zephyrian command post and help coordinate the evacuation of their leadership before Vorak forces overran the position. The enemy had broken through the northern perimeter an hour ago, and the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Marcus sprinted from cover to cover, his enhanced combat suit absorbing impacts from small debris. The technology was a joint effort between human ingenuity and alien engineering. Humans brought adaptability and creativity to the galactic community, while other species contributed their specialized knowledge. As he approached the command complex, a massive structure that looked like a grown crystal cathedral, Marcus heard something that made him stop cold. It was a roar, but not from any weapon or vehicle he knew. This sound was organic, filled with pain and desperate fury. Following the sound around a collapsed wall, Marcus discovered something that made his blood boil. In a reinforced cage made of energy fields sat the largest feline creature he had ever seen. The beast was easily 8 feet long, with golden fur marked by black stripes that seemed to shift and flow like living shadows. Its mane was magnificent, a cascade of dark gold that caught the alien sunlight, but the creature was injured. Deep burns marked its flanks where energy weapons had struck. One of its massive paws hung at an odd angle, clearly broken. Blood matted its fur, and its breathing was labored. Yet its eyes still burned with defiance. "What the hell is this?" Marcus muttered, approaching the cage carefully. The lion-like creature turned its massive head toward him. Its eyes were unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. They held intelligence deeper than any Earth animal, but also profound sadness and betrayal. "Human soldier," came a voice behind him. Marcus spun, rifle ready, to see a tall Zephyrian in ornate armor approaching. The being's 4 eyes were focused on Marcus with what might have been curiosity. "Commander Zeltar," Marcus recognized the Zephyrian leader. "What is this creature?" The alien's scaled features showed something like embarrassment. "It is a Nexari guardian, Princess Velana's bonded companion. She has ordered it abandoned here." Marcus felt his jaw clench. "Abandoned? It's clearly injured and needs medical attention. The princess has calculated that the creature's injuries make it a liability during evacuation. Resources are better spent elsewhere." Zeltar's voice carried that typical Zephyrian emotional detachment. "She has already departed with the primary evacuation convoy." The Guardian let out another pained roar, as if understanding the conversation. It struggled to stand, its broken paw causing it to stumble, yet it faced them both with dignity intact. "This is wrong," Marcus said, his voice hard. "No creature should be left to die like this. It is merely an animal human. Surely you understand tactical priorities." Marcus turned to face the Zephyrian commander fully. "On Earth we have a saying. You can judge a person's character by how they treat those who can't defend themselves." Curious human philosophy, but irrelevant to current tactical requirements. Another explosion, closer this time. The Vorak forces were advancing rapidly. Soon this position would be overrun, and everything left behind would be destroyed or captured. Zeltar activated a communication device on his arm. All units, fall back to secondary positions. The command post is being abandoned. He looked at Marcus. You should come with us, human. Your transport capabilities are needed. Marcus stared at the Guardian. The creature had stopped struggling and was watching him with those impossibly intelligent eyes. There was no pleading in its gaze, only a sort of resigned acceptance. This magnificent being expected to be abandoned, just like everything else in its life. No, Marcus said quietly. I beg your pardon? I said no. Marcus turned back to Zeltar. I'm not leaving it here. The Zephyrian commander's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of confusion. The creature cannot be moved in its condition. It would slow any evacuation and likely die anyway. Maybe. But I'm not walking away. This is illogical, human. One creature's life against potential strategic advantages? Marcus approached the energy cage and began examining its control mechanisms. The technology was Zephyrian, but he had worked with their systems before. You don't understand. This isn't about logic or strategy. His fingers found the cage controls. The interface was designed for Zephyrian physiology, but Marcus had learned to adapt. Years of working alongside alien allies had taught him to think beyond human limitations. Human, I strongly advise against this course of action. Noted and ignored. The energy field flickered and died. The Guardian tensed, unsure if this was another cruel trick. Marcus slowly removed his helmet and set down his rifle, showing empty hands. Hey there, big guy, he said softly. I'm not going to hurt you. The Guardian's ears flattened against its massive head. It had clearly been hurt by beings speaking gently before. Trust would not come easily. Marcus reached into his pack and pulled out an emergency ration bar. It was designed for human consumption, but the basic proteins should be digestible by most carbon-based life forms. He broke off a piece and tossed it gently toward the Guardian. The creature sniffed at the food suspiciously, but didn't eat. I know, Marcus said, settling into a crouch a few feet away. I wouldn't trust someone either after being abandoned. Behind him, Zeltar was speaking rapidly into his communicator, probably reporting the human's strange behavior to his superiors. Marcus didn't care. The sounds of battle were getting closer, but all his attention was focused on the injured creature before him. Marcus, he said, pointing to himself. My name is Marcus. The Guardian's ears twitched slightly. Its breathing was becoming more labored, and Marcus could see that without medical attention soon, the creature would die regardless of rescue attempts. I'm going to help you, Marcus continued, his voice steady and calm. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? The Guardian's eyes never left Marcus's face. Slowly, carefully, it leaned forward and sniffed the ration bar again. This time, it took a small bite. That's it, Marcus encouraged. Small steps. Zeltar approached again, his posture indicating urgency. Human, the Vorak advance scouts have been detected 3 kilometers out. We must evacuate immediately. Then go, Marcus replied without turning around. I'll catch up. You cannot possibly transport an injured Nexari Guardian on your own. The creature masses over 300 kilograms. Marcus finally looked back at the alien commander. Watch me. He activated his suit's emergency medical sensors and pointed them at the Guardian. The readings were grim, but not hopeless. Severe dehydration, multiple lacerations, possible internal bleeding, and definite fractures in the right forepaw. But the creature was strong, and its vital signs suggested a robust physiology. I'm going to need a medical kit, Marcus said, and any pain medication compatible with Nexari biology. This is madness. This is humanity. Marcus stood and faced Zeltar directly. Every species in the coalition has something unique to offer. Your people contribute tactical brilliance and advanced technology. The Colorans provide unmatched engineering. The Thrax offer military discipline. He gestured toward the Guardian. Humans? We bring the crazy idea that every life has value, even when it's inconvenient. Zeltar's 4 eyes studied Marcus for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, the Zephyrian commander activated his medical kit and tossed it to the human. The princess will not be pleased if she learns of this, Zeltar warned. The princess abandoned her bonded companion to die, Marcus replied, catching the kit. I think we're beyond worrying about her feelings. As Zeltar departed with the last of his forces, Marcus turned his full attention to the Guardian. The creature had finished the ration bar and was watching his movements with cautious interest. Okay, boy, Marcus said, opening the medical kit. This is going to hurt, but it'll help. I promise. The Guardian seemed to understand. It lay down, exposing its injured side to Marcus. The trust implicit in that action hit Marcus harder than any weapon. Working quickly but gently, Marcus cleaned and treated the wounds. The Guardian flinched at the antiseptic but didn't pull away. When Marcus reached the broken paw, the creature's breathing quickened, but it remained still. I know it hurts, Marcus murmured, applying a medical splint designed for humanoid limbs but adaptable to other anatomies. But this will help it heal properly. The sound of distant explosions was getting closer. Marcus estimated maybe 20 minutes before Vorak forces reached this position. He had to move fast. From his pack, Marcus pulled out a collapsible stretcher, standard issue for evacuating wounded soldiers. It wasn't designed for creatures of the Guardian's size, but human engineering often meant making things work beyond their intended specifications. Here's the tricky part, Marcus told the Guardian. I need to get you onto this stretcher and then we're going for a ride. The Guardian looked at the stretcher, then back at Marcus. Those intelligent eyes seemed to be weighing options. Finally, with obvious pain, the creature began trying to move toward the stretcher. Easy, Marcus said, supporting as much of the Guardian's weight as he could. His suit's strength enhancement helped, but this was still like wrestling with a small vehicle. Together, they managed to get the Guardian positioned on the stretcher. Marcus activated the device's anti-gravity generators, and suddenly the creature's weight became manageable. Now for the fun part, Marcus said, attaching the stretcher's towing cable to his suit's harness. The first Vorak scout ships appeared on the horizon just as Marcus began moving. The Guardian's eyes tracked the distant threats, and a low growl rumbled in its chest. Don't worry, Marcus said, breaking into a steady run. I didn't come this far to lose you now. The enhanced mobility systems in Marcus's suit allowed him to maintain a pace that would have been impossible for an unaugmented human. Behind him, the stretcher's stabilizers kept the Guardian from being jostled too severely. Plasma bolts began striking the ground around them as Vorak scouts opened fire. Marcus jinked left and right, using crystal formations as cover while maintaining forward momentum. Almost there, he panted, seeing the human evacuation point ahead. 2 transport ships were waiting, their engines already spinning up. The Guardian suddenly roared a warning. Marcus looked back to see a Vorak pursuit craft diving toward them, weapons charging. Without thinking, Marcus dove sideways, pulling the stretcher into cover behind a massive crystal spire. The enemy fire missed by inches, shattering crystal formations and showering them with fragments. Stay down, Marcus told the Guardian, then activated his rifle's maximum power setting. The Vorak craft came around for another pass. Marcus waited until it committed to its attack run, then fired a concentrated burst at the craft's engine housing. The shots connected, and the enemy vehicle spiraled out of control, crashing into the crystal field in a ball of flame. Come on! Marcus grabbed the stretcher cable and resumed running toward the evacuation point. The transport ship's loading ramps were already beginning to close. Marcus could see human soldiers gesturing frantically for him to hurry. "Wait!" he shouted over the comm channel. "I've got wounded!" The ramps stopped closing. As Marcus reached the nearest transport, hands reached out to help pull the stretcher aboard. "What the hell is that?" demanded Lieutenant Sarah Kim, Marcus's squad leader. "Long story," Marcus gasped, finally allowing himself to collapse as the transport lifted off. "Short version. Someone needed help." The Guardian lay on its stretcher, breathing heavily but alert. Its eyes found Marcus among the crowd of human soldiers and medics now surrounding them. "Medical team to the cargo bay," came the announcement over the ship's comm system. "We have an unknown wounded." As medics began examining the Guardian with portable scanners, Marcus noticed something remarkable. The creature's hostile tension was fading. It was still wary, but the aggressive fear was being replaced by something else. "Its physiology is similar to Terran felines, but more robust," reported the lead medic. "The treatments you applied probably saved its life, Sergeant." Marcus reached out slowly, letting the Guardian see his hand approaching. To his amazement, the creature allowed him to gently touch its mane. "What's your real name, boy?" Marcus asked softly. The Guardian made a sound, somewhere between a purr and a growl. It was the first voluntary vocalization Marcus had heard from the creature beyond roars of pain or anger. "We'll figure it out," Marcus promised. Through the transport's viewports, Marcus could see the crystal battlefield of Zerion Prime falling away below them. The Vorak forces were already moving into the abandoned positions, but the evacuation had been successful. Well, mostly successful. One Nexari Guardian that was supposed to have been left behind was now safe aboard a human transport, beginning a journey that would change both their lives in ways neither could yet imagine. The Guardian's breathing was becoming more regular, and its eyes were starting to close. The combination of medical treatment and exhaustion was finally catching up to it. "Rest easy," Marcus said, keeping his hand gently on the creature's mane. "You're safe now." For the first time since he had found the abandoned cage, Marcus allowed himself to think about what came next. He had no idea what regulations covered rescuing alien fauna, or what the Coalition Command would say about his decision to disobey evacuation orders. But looking at the Guardian's peaceful expression as it finally drifted into healing sleep, Marcus knew he had made the right choice. Sometimes the most human thing you could do was refuse to abandon those who needed help. Regardless of species, logic, or military protocol. The transport continued its journey toward the Coalition fleet, carrying its unusual cargo toward an uncertain but hopeful future. And in the cargo bay, a bond was beginning to form between a human soldier and an abandoned Guardian that would prove stronger than any force in the galaxy. 3 weeks had passed since the evacuation from Zerion Prime, and Marcus Chen found himself in a situation that no military manual had prepared him for. The Coalition Medical Bay on Starbase Aurora had become his second home as he visited the Guardian every day. The creature had healed remarkably well. Nexari physiology, it turned out, was incredibly resilient. The broken paw had mended cleanly, the lacerations had closed without scarring, and the creature's strength had returned in full. What hadn't healed were the emotional wounds. "The psychological trauma is significant," explained Dr. Yael Hoffman, the base's xenobiologist. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an endless patience for dealing with both alien biology and stubborn soldiers. Nexari Guardians bond for life with their chosen companions. The abandonment has left deep psychological scars. Marcus stood beside the Guardian's enclosure. It wasn't a cage anymore, but a comfortable habitat designed to accommodate the creature's needs. The Guardian had refused all attempts at interaction from the medical staff, eating only when necessary and spending most of its time staring at the wall. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "The war's still going on." I can't exactly take him with me to the front lines." "Him?" Dr. Hoffman raised an eyebrow. "You've determined the Guardian's gender?" "Not officially," Marcus admitted, "but he just seems like a him to me." The Guardian's ears twitched at Marcus's voice, the only sign that he was paying attention to the conversation. "Actually," Dr. Hoffman continued, "there's something interesting about Nexari biology you should know. They don't have fixed genders like humans. They're capable of shifting their biological sex based on emotional and social bonds." Marcus looked at her in surprise. "Seriously?" "It's a fascinating evolutionary adaptation. When a Nexari bonds deeply with a companion, they unconsciously adapt their physiology to complement their partner's needs. Since you're male, and since there's clearly a developing bond here, your guardian is likely transitioning to male characteristics." As if to emphasize the point, the guardian finally turned his massive head toward Marcus. Those intelligent gold eyes held something different now. Not the resigned acceptance Marcus had first seen, but not quite trust either. Something in between. "Has anyone tried to contact this Princess Velana?" Marcus asked. "Maybe she wants him back now that he's healed." Dr. Hoffman's expression darkened. "Actually, yes. She was quite explicit in her response. The Guardian was abandoned due to perceived weakness. In Zephyrian culture, returning to claim an abandoned bondmate after someone else has provided care would be seen as shameful. She's essentially disowned him." Marcus felt his anger flare again. "So she throws him away when he's hurt, and now that he's better, she's too proud to take him back? That's a rather simplified interpretation, but essentially correct." Marcus approached the enclosure's entrance. The Guardian watched him with those penetrating eyes, and Marcus could swear he saw understanding there. "What do you think, boy?" Marcus asked softly. "Want to get out of this medical bay for a while?" The Guardian's ears perked up slightly. Dr. Hoffman looked uncertain. "Sergeant, I'm not sure that's advisable. We still don't fully understand his psychological state." "He's been cooped up in here for 3 weeks. If I were him, I'd be going crazy too." Marcus entered the enclosure slowly. The Guardian tensed but didn't retreat. When Marcus was close enough, he extended his hand palm up, letting the creature catch his scent. The Guardian leaned forward and sniffed Marcus's hand thoroughly. Then, to everyone's surprise, he gently bumped his massive head against Marcus's palm. "Well," Dr. Hoffman said quietly, "that's the first positive interaction he's shown with anyone since arrival." Marcus slowly ran his hand along the Guardian's mane, marveling at the creature's size and power. Standing, the Guardian's shoulder came up to Marcus's chest, and his head was easily the size of Marcus's torso. "You want to see something besides these medical bay walls?" Marcus asked. The Guardian made that sound again, the purr growl that Marcus was beginning to recognize as contentment. "I'll take that as a yes." Getting approval for the Guardian to leave the medical bay required 3 different forms, 2 department heads, and a personal guarantee from Marcus that he would be responsible for any damages. An hour later, Marcus found himself walking through the Starbase's main promenade with a Nexari Guardian at his side. The reaction from other species was immediate and varied. Humans stared in fascination and wonder. Most had never seen a Nexari Guardian up close, and the creature's noble bearing was impossible to ignore. Zephyrians kept their distance, their 4 eyes tracking the Guardian with what looked like nervous respect. Other species showed mixtures of curiosity and caution. The Guardian himself seemed to be absorbing everything, his head turned constantly, taking in the sights, sounds, and smells of the diverse station population. His ears were forward and alert, and his tail moved in slow, controlled sweeps. "He's beautiful," said a voice behind them. Marcus turned to see Lieutenant Kim approaching, her expression filled with wonder. "Sarah?" Marcus nodded to his squad leader. "I thought you were in briefings all day." "Command let us out early," Something about new deployment orders. She gestured toward the Guardian. How's he doing? Better, I think. This is the first time he's been out of the medical bay. The Guardian had stopped walking and was staring at something across the promenade. Following his gaze, Marcus saw a group of Zephyrian civilians near a shop entrance. Among them was a figure that made the Guardian's entire body tense. Princess Velana stood with her entourage, her ornate robes marking her royal status. She was tall even for a Zephyrian, with scales that shimmered in deep blue and silver patterns. When her four eyes met the Guardian's gaze across the crowded space, the temperature seemed to drop several degrees. "Oh, hell," Sarah muttered. "This isn't going to end well." The Guardian began walking toward the princess, his movement fluid and purposeful. Marcus kept pace beside him, his hand resting lightly on the creature's shoulder. Princess Velana's entourage noticed their approach and formed a protective circle around her. Several of them were armed guards, their hands moving instinctively toward their weapons. "That will not be necessary," the princess said, her voice carrying clearly across the promenade. She stepped forward to meet them, her bearing regal and controlled. The Guardian stopped 3 feet away from his former bondmate. For a long moment, the two beings simply stared at each other. Marcus could feel the tension radiating from both of them. "So," Princess Velana said finally, "you survived." The Guardian's response was a low growl that carried no aggression, only profound sadness. "You left him to die," Marcus said, his voice carefully controlled. The princess's 4 eyes shifted to focus on him. "Human, your actions on Zerion Prime have been reported to me. You defied military orders to rescue an abandoned asset. I rescued a living being that needed help. An interesting perspective." The princess walked slowly around the Guardian, examining him as if he were a piece of equipment. "His injuries have healed completely. The medical staff here is quite competent." "No thanks to you." Princess Velana stopped her examination and fixed Marcus with all 4 eyes. "You disapprove of my actions. I think abandoning a bonded companion shows a complete lack of honor." The princess's scales shimmered, a sign of agitation. "Honor? You dare speak to me of honor? I am responsible for the lives of thousands of my people. In war, difficult decisions must be made. Some decisions are never acceptable, no matter the circumstances." The Guardian had remained silent during this exchange, but Marcus noticed his ears were pressed back against his head. The creature was clearly distressed by the confrontation. "Perhaps," the princess said slowly, "there is wisdom in your primitive human perspective. Your species is known for its emotional attachments to other creatures. It's called compassion. You should try it sometime." Princess Velana's scales shimmered more intensely. "You are remarkably insolent for someone of such low rank. And you're remarkably cold for someone who claims to lead others." Lieutenant Kim stepped closer to Marcus, clearly ready to intervene if the situation escalated. Around the promenade, other beings had stopped their activities to watch the confrontation between human and Zephyrian royalty. The Guardian suddenly moved, stepping between Marcus and the princess. He looked at each of them in turn, then made a series of sounds that Marcus had never heard before. They were complex vocalizations, almost like speech. Princess Velana's expression changed dramatically. "He speaks the old tongue," she said quietly. "What did he say?" Marcus asked. The princess was quiet for a long moment. When she finally answered, her voice was softer than before. "He said that bonds once broken cannot be mended, but new bonds can be forged. He said that true strength comes from choosing loyalty, even when loyalty becomes difficult." The Guardian turned to Marcus and bumped his head against the human's shoulder. Then he looked back at Princess Velana and made another series of sounds. "Now what?" Marcus asked. "He forgives me," the princess said, and for the first time, Marcus heard something like regret in her voice. "But he chooses to remain with you." The Guardian sat down beside Marcus, his massive form radiating contentment and decision. His choice was clear. Princess Velana studied them both for another long moment. "Perhaps," she said finally, "there are different kinds of strength than the ones I was taught to value." She turned to her entourage and spoke rapidly in the Zephyrian language. One of her guards stepped forward and presented Marcus with an ornate collar-like device. "This is a neural interface translator," the princess explained. "It will allow direct communication between you and the Guardian. Consider it a gift, and perhaps an apology." Marcus accepted the device, surprised by its weight and complexity. "Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Caring for a Nexari Guardian is a lifelong commitment. They bond completely and absolutely. He will follow you to the ends of the galaxy, and his life will become entirely intertwined with yours." Marcus looked down at the Guardian, who was watching him with those intelligent gold eyes. "I think I can handle that responsibility." "Can you? When your military orders take you into dangerous situations? When you are offered assignments that would require leaving him behind? When other humans question your attachment to an alien creature?" Marcus thought about these challenges for a moment. Then he knelt beside the Guardian and looked directly into his eyes. "I made you a promise when I found you," Marcus said. "I told you that you were safe now. That promise doesn't have an expiration date." The Guardian's response was immediate and unmistakable. He leaned forward and gently nuzzled Marcus's face, a gesture of complete trust and affection. Princess Velana watched this interaction with something that might have been wonder. "Remarkable," she said softly. "He has bonded more completely with you in 3 weeks than he ever did with me in 3 years. Maybe that's because I see him as a partner, not an asset." "Indeed." The princess gathered her robes and prepared to leave. "I hope, for both your sakes, that this bond proves stronger than the challenges ahead." As the Zephyrian entourage departed, Marcus fitted the neural interface around the Guardian's neck. The device automatically adjusted to fit perfectly, its biocompatible materials warming to match the creature's body temperature. Immediately, Marcus felt something new in his mind. It wasn't quite a voice, but rather a presence. Images and emotions that weren't his own began filtering through his consciousness. Gratitude. Deep, overwhelming gratitude mixed with fierce loyalty and protective love. The feeling of being truly seen and valued for the first time. "Can you understand me now?" Marcus asked aloud. The response came not as words, but as concepts and feelings. "Yes. Finally, yes. You saved me. You chose me. I am yours as you are mine." Marcus was stunned by the depth of emotion flowing through the mental link. The Guardian's loyalty wasn't just affection or gratitude, it was a complete dedication of his entire existence to their partnership. "What should I call you?" Marcus asked. "You must have a real name." More images and concepts flowed through the link. The Guardian's original name was a complex series of tonal concepts that roughly translated to Guardian of the Crystal Winds. But that name belonged to his old life. "Choose," came the mental response. "You gave me new life. You give me new name." Marcus thought about it for a moment. "How about Rex? It means king. Because you've got the bearing of royalty, even if your princess forgot that." The Guardian considered this for a moment, then sent a wave of approval and satisfaction through the link. "Rex it is then," Marcus said, running his hand through the creature's mane. Lieutenant Kim, who had been watching this entire exchange with fascination, finally spoke up. "This is either the beginning of a beautiful friendship or the most complicated situation in military history." Marcus laughed. "Probably both." Rex sent another emotional pulse through their link. This one was harder to interpret, but it seemed to be anticipation mixed with determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them at Marcus's side. Over the next few days, Marcus and Rex settled into a routine aboard Starbase Aurora. Rex proved to be incredibly intelligent, learning to navigate the station's corridors with ease and showing remarkable patience with the constant attention from curious crew members. The neural link between them deepened as they learned to communicate more effectively. Rex's mind was complex and nuanced, capable of abstract thought and sophisticated emotional reasoning. He wasn't just an intelligent animal. He was a true partner with his own thoughts, opinions, and personality. Marcus learned that Nexari Guardians were originally bred as companions for Zephyrian nobility, but they had evolved far beyond their original purpose. They were capable of independent thought and decision-making, with loyalty systems more complex than simple obedience. Rex, for his part, was fascinated by human military culture. He observed training exercises with keen interest and seemed to understand tactical concepts instinctively. When Marcus explained human history and philosophy to him, Rex absorbed the information eagerly, asking questions through the mental link that often surprised Marcus with their insight. The peaceful routine was interrupted 1 week later when new deployment orders arrived. Marcus was assigned to join a reconnaissance mission to the contested world of Kepler-7. The mission profile was classified, but Marcus could read between the lines. It would be dangerous, potentially involving deep penetration behind enemy lines. Rex sensed Marcus's tension through their link before Marcus had even finished reading the orders. "Danger," Rex communicated. "You fear for my safety." "The mission profile doesn't exactly allow for companions," Marcus replied. "Especially non-human companions. I go where you go." "Rex, this isn't like the evacuation from Xerion Prime. This is a covert operation. Having you along would compromise the entire mission." Rex's mental response was immediate and absolute. "I go where you go." Marcus sighed. He was beginning to understand what Princess Villana had meant about the challenges of bonding with a Nexari Guardian. Rex's loyalty was total and uncompromising, even when that loyalty might put them both in danger. "Let me talk to Command," Marcus said finally. "Maybe we can find a solution." The conversation with Colonel Sarah Chen, the base commander, did not go as Marcus had hoped. "Absolutely not, Sergeant," Colonel Chen said firmly. "This is a military operation, not a wildlife expedition." "Rex isn't wildlife, ma'am. He's intelligent, trained, and capable of following orders. He's also a massive alien predator that would stand out like a beacon on any covert mission." Marcus tried a different approach. "Ma'am, the Coalition has been trying to understand Nexari Guardian capabilities for years. This could be an opportunity to field test their tactical applications." Colonel Chen leaned back in her chair, studying Marcus with calculating eyes. "You're really pushing this, aren't you, Sergeant?" "Ma'am, I made a commitment when I rescued Rex. I can't just abandon him now because it's convenient." "And if I order you to leave him here?" Marcus met her gaze steadily. "Then you'll have to find another volunteer for the Kepler-7 mission." The colonel's eyebrows rose. "Are you refusing a direct order, Sergeant?" "No, ma'am. I'm requesting reassignment to duties that allow me to fulfill my responsibilities to Rex." Colonel Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, there was something like respect in her voice. "You know, Sergeant, in 30 years of military service, I've never had a soldier request reassignment to protect an alien companion. Rex isn't just a companion, ma'am. He's my partner." "And you believe this partnership makes you a more effective soldier?" Marcus thought about the question carefully. "I believe it makes me a better human, ma'am, and better humans tend to be better soldiers." Colonel Chen activated her desk's communication system. "Dr. Hoffman to my office immediately." When the xenobiologist arrived, Colonel Chen gestured for her to sit. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, could a Nexari Guardian be trained for covert military operations?" Dr. Hoffman looked surprised by the question. Theoretically, yes. Their natural abilities include enhanced senses, silent movement, and remarkable problem-solving capabilities. They're also naturally protective of their bonded partners. And the risks? Primarily their size and distinctiveness. However, if the mission parameters could accommodate these factors, a Guardian could provide significant tactical advantages. Colonel Chen turned back to Marcus. If, and I emphasize if, I approve this request, you and your Guardian would be responsible for proving that human-Nexari partnerships can enhance coalition military effectiveness. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Marcus felt Rex's presence in his mind, radiating confidence and determination. Yes, ma'am. We are. Then you have 48 hours to prepare for an unconventional deployment. And Sergeant? Yes, ma'am. If this goes badly, you'll be assigned to the most remote monitoring station I can find for the rest of your career. Understood, ma'am. As Marcus left the colonel's office, Rex was waiting in the corridor outside. The Guardian's mental presence was filled with satisfaction and anticipation. We go together, Rex communicated. We go together, Marcus confirmed. Neither of them fully understood the challenges that lay ahead, but they faced them as they would face everything else from now on, as partners, as team, and as friends bound by something deeper than duty or obligation. They were bound by choice, and that made all the difference in the galaxy. The dense forests of Kepler-7 stretched endlessly under the pale light of its red dwarf star. Marcus crouched behind a fallen log, his camouflaged armor blending perfectly with the alien vegetation. Beside him, Rex moved like a shadow given form, his golden fur somehow managing to disappear among the strange purple and silver foliage. 2 days into their reconnaissance mission, Marcus had learned that Dr. Hoffman had understated Rex's capabilities. The Guardian could move through dense underbrush without making a sound. His enhanced senses could detect enemy patrols from over a kilometer away, and his intelligence allowed him to understand complex tactical concepts without lengthy explanations. Vorak Patrol, 1,200 meters northeast, Rex communicated through their neural link. 8 soldiers, standard weapons, following the ridgeline. Marcus checked his tactical display. Rex's assessment was confirmed by his suit's long-range sensors, but the Guardian had detected the patrol a full 3 minutes before the human technology registered their presence. Outstanding, Marcus whispered. We'll let them pass and continue toward the primary objective. The primary objective was a Vorak communications array hidden deep in Kepler-7's wilderness. Intelligence suggested the array was coordinating enemy fleet movements across 3 star systems. The mission was simple in concept. Get close enough to plant listening devices and map the facility's defenses for a future strike. In practice, the mission was anything but simple. Kepler-7 was crawling with Vorak forces, the terrain was hostile to human physiology, and the weather patterns could shift from clear to violent storms with little warning. Rex had adapted to all these challenges with remarkable ease. His robust Nexari physiology handled the planet's environmental stresses better than Marcus's enhanced suit, and his natural predator instincts made him invaluable for detecting threats and finding concealment. Storm coming, Rex warned. Large electrical disturbance from the west. Marcus checked his weather sensors. The storm was still an hour away, according to his instruments, but Rex's senses were proving more accurate than coalition technology. We need to find shelter and wait it out, Marcus decided. Rex's response came as a series of images through their mental link. He had spotted a cave system about half a kilometer south. The caves were deep enough to provide shelter from the electrical storm, and they offered multiple exit routes in case of discovery. Lead the way, Marcus said. Following Rex through the alien forest was like being guided by the spirit of the wilderness itself. The Guardian seemed to know instinctively where to step to avoid loose rocks, which branches would support weight, and how to navigate around patches of ground that would leave tracks. The cave Rex had chosen was perfect, deep enough for complete concealment, with natural acoustic dampening that would muffle any sound, and positioned to provide excellent observation of the surrounding area. As they settled in to wait out the storm, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. When he had first found Rex in that energy cage, he had acted on pure instinct. Now they operated as a seamless team, each complementing the other's strengths and covering for weaknesses. "You are thinking deep thoughts," Rex observed through their link. "Just wondering what happens after this mission," Marcus replied. "Command is watching us closely. If we succeed, human-Nexari partnerships might become standard. If we fail, we will not fail." The absolute confidence in Rex's mental voice was reassuring, but Marcus had learned to think beyond immediate tactical concerns. "It's not just about this mission," Marcus explained. "The Coalition is still learning how to integrate different species effectively. Some see partnerships like ours as valuable assets. Others see them as dangerous emotional attachments that compromise military effectiveness. The Zephyrian princess believed the same thing." "Exactly. And if too many senior officers share her perspective, this might be our first and last mission together." Rex was quiet for a moment, his mental presence contemplative. When he finally responded, his communication carried layers of meaning that spoken words could never convey. "In the old stories of my people, there is a saying, 'True strength is not measured by the force of the blow, but by the bonds that give the warrior reason to strike.' Your people understand this truth better than mine ever did." The storm outside intensified, with lightning strikes illuminating the cave entrance in brilliant flashes. The electrical discharge was so intense that it temporarily interfered with their communication equipment, but their neural link remained clear and strong. "The communication array is close," Rex sent after the worst of the storm had passed. "I can sense the electromagnetic signature." Marcus checked his instruments. They were still 3 kilometers from the target coordinates, but Rex was right. Faint electromagnetic readings were registering on his sensors now that the storm interference had cleared. "How are you picking up electronic signatures?" Marcus asked. "I didn't think Nexari had technological sensory adaptations." Rex's response came with images of his early life. As a companion to Zephyrian royalty, he had been exposed to advanced technology from birth. His neural pathways had adapted to recognize and interpret electromagnetic patterns, essentially giving him a biological technological sense. "Princess Velana never understood this ability," Rex explained. "She saw only what I appeared to be, not what I had become." They left the cave as soon as the storm cleared, moving toward the communication array with renewed purpose. The terrain became increasingly difficult as they approached the facility, with steep ravines, dense undergrowth, and what appeared to be artificial sensor networks. "Automated defenses," Rex warned, stopping suddenly. Marcus activated his suit's detection systems, but found nothing. "I'm not reading any security devices." Rex padded forward carefully, then stopped beside what looked like an ordinary rock formation. Through their link, he shared what his enhanced senses had detected. The rocks were actually camouflaged sensor nodes, linked in a network that would detect any movement larger than local wildlife. "Can we get around them?" Marcus asked. Rex studied the sensor network carefully, his mind working through the problem with methodical precision. Finally, he projected a route through their link, a complex path that would require precise timing and movement, but would take them between the sensor nodes without triggering alarms. Following Rex's guidance, Marcus found himself moving through a 3-dimensional maze of invisible detection beams. The Guardian's ability to sense electromagnetic fields allowed him to map the entire security network in real time, adjusting their path as needed to avoid detection. When they finally reached the edge of the facility's perimeter, Marcus was amazed by what he saw. The Vorak communication array was far more extensive than intelligence had suggested. Instead of a simple relay station, they were looking at a major command complex built into a natural canyon. Many soldiers, Rex observed. Much equipment. This is not just communications. Through his scope, Marcus could see that Rex was correct. The facility included barracks, vehicle maintenance bays, supply depots, and what looked like a strategic planning center. This wasn't just a communication relay. It was a major regional headquarters. We need to get closer, Marcus said. Command needs to know about this. The approach to the facility required every skill both partners possessed. Rex's sensory abilities allowed them to avoid patrols and security systems, while Marcus's technical knowledge helped them identify key targets and gather intelligence. Working together, they managed to plant listening devices on 3 critical communication nodes and map the facility's defensive positions. The intelligence they gathered would be invaluable for planning a proper assault. But as they prepared to withdraw, Rex suddenly tensed with alarm. We are discovered. Large patrol approaching from multiple directions. Marcus checked his instruments and confirmed Rex's warning. A full company of Vorak soldiers was converging on their position from 3 different approaches. Somehow, despite all their precautions, they had been detected. How? Rex sent, his mental voice tight with concentration. Marcus quickly reviewed their approach route and realized the problem. Biological scanners, he said grimly. They weren't looking for movement or electromagnetic signatures. They were scanning for non-native biological markers. Rex's fur rippled with tension. Fight or flee. Marcus assessed their tactical situation. They were outnumbered 50-1 in unfamiliar terrain with limited ammunition. A direct confrontation would be suicide. We run, Marcus decided, but not back the way we came. They'll expect that. Through their neural link, Rex shared his understanding of the local terrain. There was a river system about 2 kilometers east that led through a series of underground caverns. The water would mask their scent and thermal signatures, while the cave network would provide multiple escape routes. Lead on, Marcus said. What followed was the most intense chase of Marcus's military career. Rex guided them through terrain that would have been impossible to navigate alone, while Vorak patrols closed in from all directions. The Guardians' enhanced senses allowed them to stay ahead of their pursuers. But the enemy was persistent and well-coordinated. When they finally reached the river system, Marcus realized they had another problem. The water was moving fast and was clearly deep, but more importantly, it was glowing with bioluminescent organisms that would make them visible from a considerable distance. Trust me, Rex sent, plunging into the glowing water without hesitation. Marcus followed and immediately understood Rex's strategy. The bioluminescent organisms were triggered by movement, but Rex was moving in a specific pattern that minimized their response. By following exactly in the Guardian's wake, Marcus was able to traverse the river with minimal light emission. The underwater cave system was a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers that stretched for kilometers. Rex navigated it with the confidence of a creature born to underground spaces, always choosing passages that led away from their pursuers while maintaining their general escape heading. When they finally emerged from the cave system 6 hours later, they were 15 kilometers from the communication facility and completely clear of pursuit. Outstanding work, Marcus said as they took shelter in a grove of spiral-shaped trees. I don't think I could have made it out of there alone. Partnership, Rex replied simply. Your knowledge, my senses. Together we are stronger than either alone. The extraction point was still 2 days away, but Marcus felt confident they could reach it safely. More importantly, the intelligence they had gathered would significantly impact coalition strategy in this sector. As they settled in for a few hours of rest, Marcus found himself thinking about the broader implications of their success. They had accomplished something that neither human technology nor Nexari abilities could have achieved alone. "You are satisfied with our performance," Rex observed. "Very satisfied. But I'm also thinking about what comes next. This mission proves that human Nexari partnerships can work in combat situations. That's going to change things. Change is not always welcomed by those in authority." "True. But sometimes change is necessary, whether it's welcomed or not." Rex's mental presence carried warmth and contentment. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The extraction went smoothly, and their return to Starbase Aurora was met with significant interest from Coalition Command. The intelligence they had gathered revealed the Vorak communication facility to be a major strategic target, leading to a successful assault that disrupted enemy operations across 3 star systems. More importantly for Marcus and Rex, their mission had demonstrated the tactical value of human Nexari partnerships beyond any doubt. Colonel Chen's debriefing was thorough and positive. "The intelligence you two gathered single-handedly shifted our strategic assessment of Vorak operations in this sector," she told them. "Command is very pleased." "Thank you, ma'am," Marcus replied. "Rex deserves most of the credit. His abilities made the mission possible. Which brings me to my next point. Coalition Command wants to establish a pilot program for human Nexari partnerships. They're asking for volunteers to help train the first generation of mixed-species teams." Marcus looked down at Rex, who was lying beside his chair with the patient dignity that had become his trademark. Through their neural link, Marcus felt the Guardian's excitement and anticipation. "We're interested, ma'am," Marcus said. "I thought you might be. But understand, this won't be easy. You'll be pioneering something completely new, and there will be significant resistance from traditional military mindsets." Marcus thought back to his conversation with Princess Velana and her dismissal of emotional bonds as tactical weaknesses. "Ma'am, respectfully, I think it's time the military learned that some bonds make us stronger, not weaker." Rex sent a pulse of agreement through their link, along with images of their successful mission. 2 beings from different species, working together with perfect coordination and absolute trust. "Report to Training Complex 7 tomorrow morning," Colonel Chen said. "You have a program to design." As they left the colonel's office, Marcus felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond military success. They had proven that the bond between species could create something greater than the sum of its parts. "New beginning," Rex communicated. "New beginning," Marcus agreed. The training complex was already being prepared for the arrival of the first volunteer human Nexari pairs. Marcus would be responsible for developing tactical protocols, while Rex would help evaluate Guardian candidates for psychological compatibility with human partners. But more than that, they would be proving every day that the choice Marcus had made on Xerion Prime had been about more than saving one abandoned creature. It had been about recognizing the potential for partnership across species lines and having the courage to act on that recognition. As they walked through the starbase corridors, Marcus noticed the reactions they received from other beings. There was still curiosity and some uncertainty, but there was also respect. Word of their successful mission had spread, and people were beginning to see them not as an oddity, but as an effective team. "What do you think Princess Velana would say if she could see us now?" Marcus asked through their link. Rex's response carried layers of meaning, forgiveness, understanding, and perhaps a touch of sadness for what could have been. She would say that some lessons must be learned through loss before they can be appreciated. But she might also say that new bonds, freely chosen, are stronger than old bonds imposed by tradition. Marcus smiled at the wisdom in that observation. Rex had grown tremendously since their first meeting, developing not just as a partner but as an individual with his own insights and perspectives. The future stretched ahead of them, full of challenges and opportunities. There would be skeptics to convince, protocols to develop, and new partnerships to foster. But Marcus faced it all with confidence, knowing that whatever came next, they would handle it together. In the end, that was what made humans special in the galactic community. Not their technology or their tactical abilities, but their willingness to form bonds across species lines, to see potential partners rather than merely useful assets, and to choose loyalty even when loyalty became difficult. Rex had taught him that strength came in many forms, and that the strongest warriors were not those who fought alone, but those who fought for something greater than themselves. As they began their new mission of training the next generation of human Nexari teams, Marcus knew they were helping to shape the future of the coalition itself, a future where partnership across species lines was not just possible, but essential. "Ready for the next adventure?" Rex asked as they entered the training complex. "Ready for anything," Marcus replied, "as long as we're facing it together." The bond that had begun with a simple choice to help an abandoned creature had grown into something that would change the galaxy. And it all started with one human soldier who refused to walk away from someone who needed help, regardless of species, logic, or military protocol. That perhaps was the most human thing of all.